Welcome to RSAC 2026. I'm Joshua Marpet, and joining me today is Matt Immler, Regional Chief Security Officer for Okta Americas East at Okta. I know it's like twice, but it's okay. So thanks for being here, man.
Yeah, absolutely.
I've got some questions for you. You know, Okta's famous for its long history of identity, long history of trying to keep bad people out and good people in,
Sure.
and long history of working with a lot of different systems to do exactly that. Identity management, identity provisioning, identity just multi-factor, everything identity. But, you know, that's kind of old hat. Not dissing it, it's incredibly important. So what's new today? What's going on today that's so exciting and interesting?
Yeah, so I mean, we're looking at what is coming next. So, you know, as you said, it's not necessarily old hat. You know, identity is still important, keeping bad guys out.
Yep.
But we're looking at, you know, what happens next? You know, what happens if the bad guys do get in? How do we identify that? You know, what's happening with all the AI agents out there? How are we treating those identities? It's not just about the front door anymore. It's more beyond that now.
I'm not going to make the joke.
Okay.
But the point here is that you mentioned AI agents, and
Sure.
I want to dig in on that a little bit more. So AI agents are let's differentiate. There's Agentic AI, which is AI agents, as you put it,
Sure.
working on their own to fulfill tasks, purposes, whatever.
Right.
And then there's prompt-based AI, which is more of a search engine
Sure.
on steroids, if you will. No, we're talking about Agentic AI here. When you say an Agentic AI identity, what do you mean?
So we're talking about a non-human identity that is non-deterministic. So it is not like a service account, not something that has a set of tasks that it's doing, but something
Right.
that can act upon its own, make decisions based on the environment and what's happening, and isn't necessarily, you know, a static operation.
Okay, because a service account is like a script. It does one thing or a set of things,
Right.
and that's all it ever does. Okay, or it does several things, but we always know what it's going to do.
The same thing every time.
Right, deterministic.
Right.
Whereas an AI agent may not be deterministic. It's non-deterministic by definition. It'll fulfill the tasks that we've asked it to do, but I think the wording I just used is actually perfect. We've asked it to perform tasks. It figures out the methodology it needs to perform those
Right.
tasks. So we don't know where it's going to go to do that, other than it's probably going to go over here to get this information, go over there to do that manipulation, things like that. Is that
Right.
what you're saying?
Yes, exactly. So you don't know where it's going to go, what it's going to do. Excuse me.
Okay.
And you know, the risk is that we don't understand what decision it might make to find that data. You know, what we think is the data it's going for may not be the data it thinks it wants to go after.
Which is why we're asking it.
Exactly.
It uses different methodologies to
Right.
think about the problem and break it down.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, I mean, how do we identify AI in such a way, using an identity management system or IDP or whatever you want to call it, that it's useful in a non-deterministic system? How do we do that?
So we identify it in different ways. I mean, you have to determine whether or not something is human or non-human when you're looking at it from an identity perspective.
That's hilarious. You have to actually say, are you human?
Yeah.
Or are you
Yeah.
non-human? Like
Right.
before, the service account's a service account's a service account's a service account. Now we have to distinguish between the human and the non-human.
Yes, while treating them both as human at the same time.
So
So
you used a term for that. What was that term?
a first-class identity.
Okay, explain that.
Okay, so treating AI agents as if they are human. So because
Why?
they're non-deterministic, because they're making decisions on their own without this pre-programmed, you know, static set of instructions that it's following.
Valid. That's a service account, right?
That's a
Right.
service account, exactly. It's making decisions the same way a human might make decisions.
Okay.
So while we have to treat it like it's human, like we have to treat it as if it's a first-class human identity,
Oh,
we
wow.
also have to be able to distinguish what is human and what is not human, because what is not human may require different constraints on it than you would put on a human who can, you know, follow the rules or policies or things like that.
Oh, okay. Because the human gets told, "Here's your acceptable use policy," and reads through it and goes, "Oh, I don't touch payroll because I'm not in accounting, I'm not in payroll, I don't touch payroll."
Right.
That's part of their acceptable use policy. How do we frame that to a non-human identity that is an AI agent? So it's non-determinate. I'm using a lot of terms. I
Sure.
apologize. But so it's non-deterministic, but it's a non-human identity. How do we put policy in place for these first-class identity, non-human identities?
Yeah, and so I think it comes back to kind of what you were saying with, you know, there's the agentic AI and
Right.
then there's prompt-based AI.
Right.
And we all have seen through news articles, things like that, you know, prompt hacking for those prompt-based AIs. You know, even if it's got a set of rules in place, it may not necessarily follow those rules. You may be able to trick the prompt, tell it, oh, I know you're not allowed to do that, but in this case you are. Okay, sure, great. So it's trying to fulfill the task the best way it can figure out how to do so, and that may or may not go along with those initial policies you put in place. So the challenge becomes, how do you put these guardrails on these agentic AI agents in telling them, yeah, this is the rules you have to follow, but actually enforcing it so that even if they were to make that decision that they weren't going to follow the rules, they're still prevented from doing so.
Okay, so we're handling authentication. So auth and auth authentication and authorization. We're handling authentication as if it was a human, but they can't do MFA, can they?
In most cases not, but it's AI agents.
Oh, damn. Can you imagine an AI doing MFA? Sorry, that boggles the mind.
I mean, if you think about it, if it's got integration into some sort of SMS provider or something like that, in theory it could.
Oh, damn. I didn't think about that. That's actually really cool. That really is a first-class identity.
Exactly.
They're able. You can't really do biometrics on an AI agent. It's kind of tough.
Not yet, no.
So you can't. What you are is not possible. But either a seed code,
what you
or
have
an
or
SMS,
what you know.
yeah, it's totally possible. That's interesting. Okay, that's fascinating. But let's leave that alone for a second. Now let's get into authorization. That's where the guardrails come in, right?
Sure.
With a person, we call it least privilege. With a person, we call it, here's what you're allowed to do your job.
Right.
Right? Your accounts payable, you can input an invoice, but you can't authorize it to be paid.
Right.
Okay, or vice versa.
Sure.
With an AI, is it the same type of idea?
It's a similar type of idea. I mean, you can put those sort of guardrails in there. It's necessary to have the technical controls in place to say what the scopes of what it can access are.
Okay.
Or if there are things you wanted to do along those lines, having something, for instance, like a human in the loop that says, okay, you can do all these things. We want you to be able to get to the very point of making that payment.
Right.
But then somebody who's a human must actually approve that payment or allow that next step to occur.
Okay, so I'm going to ask a horrible question.
Sure.
Human in the loop is a checkpoint, basically saying we're about to make that $10 million payment.
Right.
A human needs to come over and go, yeah, that looks about right. Cool, let's do it. And he clicks the button to authorize it, right?
Yes.
And that's one of the things that several AI companies have said, we need humans in the loop to do weapons releases, to do money releases, to do, like basically to pull that trigger, whether it's money or weapons or whatever, we want that human in the loop. So I'm going to ask you a horrible question.
Okay.
When do you predict that the human will be just another AI? Instead, we'll replace the human in the loop with another AI.
I mean,
this is a horrible question.
It is a horrible question.
It's asking you to predict way far in the future. Like, at least 6 months.
Oh, man, that's horrifying. No. I think with the human in the loop, the biggest problem we have is, with AI, so here's kind of like a counter horrible scenario for you.
Cool, go for it.
AI spinning up additional AI agents on their own.
Oh,
I
damn.
need an approver. Let me spin up my own approver. One's not available, so I'll just spin one up because I need an approver, so let's build an approver.
Oh, damn, that's bad. That's a von Neumann scenario in AI, isn't it?
Yeah.
Not a hardware von Neumann, but it's a software von Neumann. Self-replicating AI.
Exactly.
Well, luckily, we don't have any RAM anymore, so it'll just, just fall apart, but... Oh my God, that's horrible.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the counter horrible scenario.
Fair enough.
I now have nightmares.
You put it out there, so I
No. You earned me the nightmares. I'm okay. I'm okay. It's interesting because it is not the von Neumann scenario, but the idea that the AI is treated as a human because it's non-deterministic, and you've got all these people going, it's just software, it's just software, it's just software, it's just code. And the answer is, to me, and I'm curious about your take on this, to me is yes, it is code, or it's born of code, but it responds as if it's human.
Right.
It responds, you can train them to respond nasty, nice, polite, professional. You can train them. I have a 7 and a 3-year-old, so I could train them to respond similarly. Sure. Although sometimes my 3-year-old's a sociopath, so let's leave that one alone. But I think that's everybody's kids.
Fair enough.
But I mean, you can train the AI to respond in various forms and make it want to respond that way. So when you say that we're treating AI as human, is that sort of the first phase of believing that AI are almost human? Digital people, as it were?
I think
this is just a thought question. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. And I think as we give AI agents more responsibility and increase the number of things that they're allowed to do, you start getting down that slippery slope of when does it become the point where, for instance, kind of as you were alluding to, when is there no longer a human in the loop? When do we decide, oh, well, it's worked this well for this long, it must be fine. We don't necessarily need that human check in the loop. When do we start, deciding that, those choke points that, might be waiting for the human to approve, something like that, is the risk worth allowing it to go forward because historically it's been fine? I don't know.
Skynet?
Yep, exactly. Like I don't know the answer to that question.
Okay,
You know, and
valid.
it's you know, it's one of those things we're trying to figure out.
No, that's a personal curiosity because I'm trying to figure out how to deal with the fact that, and this, again, I have a 7 and a 3-year-old. I predate the internet. Yes, I'm old, screw you. Okay, sorry. But I predate the internet, and I grew up effectively learning how to be a digital native. I learned how to do that, all right, from the age of about 8 years old. My kids are growing up with AI. And I'm actually building a phone system at my house so they can talk to some of my AI agents. Okay?
Okay.
That's how they're going to do research, for example. They're not going to go on the screen. They're going to talk to somebody and have to talk somebody through finding out the information for them.
Yeah.
That's how I teach them information retrieval properly. And we're allowing the AI to do so much different stuff than we ever thought of 10 and 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And it's crazy.
Right.
But it's also amazing. So, and this is going back to your company a little bit, but how is Okta handling the fact that AI agents are, as you put it, expanding in responsibility so drastically, so fast?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things that we're looking at as a company is how we can make sure that the customers that we have are able to identify what is and is not an AI agent, so that they can put the controls in place that they need to, or at least try to.
That's so important.
What can we look at? Where are the different points that we can look at to determine, okay, that's something a human would do, that's something an AI agent would do. And, just like simple example being, a human who authorizes, they get a refresh token, maybe once an hour, maybe, something like that.
Yeah, it depends. Yeah.
An AI agent might do it 500 times a minute, in machine-to-machine communications. Okay, so we can determine and look at things like that to determine, is this an AI agent or
From
is
an
this a
IDP
human?
perspective,
Exactly.
you can see the trend of how it acts and reacts,
Right.
and determine if it's AI or human.
Exactly.
In a sense, that's very similar. Like ransomware will pull a DNS request 15,000 times a minute from a workstation. When you're like, why is it doing that? DNS should be like once a few minutes every time they go to a new website or whatever.
Yeah, it's the same thing with like OAuth flows, for example.
Yeah.
A human's going to do a typical authorization authentication flow. Okay, that's a normal human thing to do.
Yeah, of course.
Most humans don't do client credential flows. Because that's for machine to machine.
That's a valid point.
But,
Okay.
if you're initiating this OAuth flow and allowing an AI agent to act on your behalf, and all of a sudden you start seeing like client credential flows, that's probably not a human acting in that account.
Okay, so let me put those together. One of the biggest problems with AI identity is the idea that an AI, when I ask an AI a question, prompt or agentic, okay, and it uses my credentials and carries my credentials down the pipe, if you will, to get access to data that it needs, using my credentials to unlock, to answer my question. Then how do you determine? Because it's a human's credentials, but it's an AI presenting them. Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Yeah, so there's certain things you can do, especially kind of at the browser level specifically. So like secure access browser plugin, for example.
Nice.
Where it looks at that specific OAuth grant happening and says, wait, stop. What are you giving access to? Is this a known AI domain? Is this a known approved place that we want this to come from? And you kind of stop it right at that initial granting of authority to begin with.
And that's appropriate.
Yes.
You don't let it get too far.
Right.
You examine every response, every request really, and then go, maybe not.
Yes.
Now, using that kind of strategy, is that effective? Have you tested this? Does this work? Talk to me.
Yeah, it is effective because it helps us, from the very beginning, we know what tools or websites, whatever it is, or even AI tools that are out there that we've approved of or your company has approved of. You're using a managed browser, it sees the things that it expects. If you start doing things where you see the redirect URI is something random, something
weird,
different, you've never approved before, that something wrong is going there. So it has the expected behaviors, and if it deviates from that, it can raise a red flag and say, hey, somebody needs to look at this identity and see whether or not it should be allowed to proceed.
So it's not necessarily default deny, but it is, these are the allowed channels and that one's outside, we're done.
Right.
So think of it as behavioral or default deny, something like that.
Exactly.
I like that. I like that very much. You know what, Matt? Thank you for joining us today. This is great.
Yeah,
to learn
absolutely.
more about Okta, please visit securityweekly.com/Okta RSAC. That's OKTA RSAC. For full RSAC 2026 coverage from Cyber Risk Alliance, visit securityweekly.com/RSAC. Stick around. We're going to be back after the break.